Today ain't your day, pancakes.
Today is the day.
I thought it was
to celebrate
Thursday.
our inevitable death, I think I'd like to read.
Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot,
God.
but the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not.
Mess with the best
Okay.
and die like the
Is that it?
No, I need to turn off my
¿Qué onda?
it, that I don't hear myself when I
Oh. Wait, are you gonna actually read the whole thing? Please read the whole thing.
Yes.
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 Now,
I'm ready.
where was I? The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. Whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve hating the Who's,
Oh my
staring
God,
down from his
isn't it
cave with
ableist?
a sour, grinchy frown at the warm, lighted windows below in their town, where he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming. I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow he knew all the Who girls and boys would wake the bright and early. They'd rush for their toys, and then, oh, the noise. Oh, the noise, 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 noise. That's one thing he hated, the noise, 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 noise. Then the Who's, young and old, would sit down to a feast. And they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, 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 feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he'd like least at all. Least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Who's would start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop
Why
this
53?
Christmas from coming. But how? Then he got an idea.
Who's this person
An
called
awful
Christmas?
idea. The Grinch.
That's
But a
just your
wonderful,
opinion, narrator.
awful idea. I know just what to do. The Grinch laughed at in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat. And he chuckled and clucked. What a great Grinchy trick! With this coat and this hat, I'll look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was no one to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No, the Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max, then he took some red thread, and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, "Giddy up!" And he slayed, and the sleigh started down toward the homes where the Who's laid a snooze in their town. All their windows were dark, quiet snow filled the air. All the Who's were dreaming, sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, "This is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed. And he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch. But if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once, for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room and took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums. And they stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimney. Then he slunk to the icebox.
I can
sake.
voice
The Who's Feast.
Cindy Lou if you want.
Okay. He took the Who pudding, he took the roast beast, and he cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash. Why, the Grinch even took the last can of Who hash. And he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, said the Grinch, I will stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree, and he started to shove, when he heard a small sound like a coo of a dove. He turned around fast and a small Who.
I won.
Little Cindy Lou who was no more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter, who had gotten out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said,
Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?
but you know, that old
First
Grinch was so
I
smart
thought that
and
was
so
Encarra,
slick.
and I was like, whoa, wait a second.
He thought up a lie. He thought it up quick. Why, my sweet little tot, the fake Santa Claus lied. There's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, dear. I'll fix it there, then I'll bring it back here. And his fib fooled the child. Then he patted her head, and he got her a drink, and he sent her to bed. When Cindy Lou, who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. And the last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went to the chimney, himself the old liar. On their walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And the one red speck of food that left in his house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. It was 1/4 dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze when he packed up the sled, packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags and the tinsel, the trimmings, the trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load up to the tip-top to dump it. Pooh-pooh to the Who's, he said grinchiously humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry, boo-hoo. That's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I must simply hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It sounded in low, and then it started to grow. It wasn't the sound, but the sound wasn't sad. Why, the sound was very merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry. Very. He started down.
What did I just do to my throat? Oh my god.
Are you alright?
I'm fine.
He stared down at
I can't
Whoville.
believe
The
every
Grinch
fucking
popped his
bird.
eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it just came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet, ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. The Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day, and the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed back with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast, and he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. The end.